Mimi nitaenda Kisumu kutafuta kula. Amen. Nataka Mheshimiwa Raila akikuja Gatundu kuomba kula, alale kwa nyumba yangu huko Gatundu.
Sasa hii maneno wabebe wapeleke kila mahali pembe zote za Kenya ya kuunganisha wa Kenya.
Is this the end of the verbal wars? Raila and Kuria lead fish-eating peace meeting.
Mimi simjui kabisa na sijai kumuona na sijai communicate. Ni mambo tu pale ametoka na maneno sijui.
Court claims Uhuru's government trying to set them up with overthrow allegations. Kenyan teachers make deal with the employer in historic bargaining agreement. And why a top Eldoret student would rather had cows than go to university. Hello there, welcome to KTN Prime. Thank you so much for creating time for us. I'm Linda Ogutu. Our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen is Meresha Owiti. Let's look at the top stories for you tonight. Court leader Raila Odinga led a brigade of politicians to a rare lunch date with some of his fiercest critics, led by Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria. It was the lunch date floated and sealed soon after Kuria and 7 other members of Parliament spent 3 nights in the cells of alleged hate speech. But is this enough to prevent future verbal exchanges that usually divide the Kenyan nation right down the middle? KTN's Timothy Otieno was at the fish-eating event.
They streamed in one by one, a minor activity undertaken by many on a daily basis, but one that for today would attract a huge gathering. Moses Kuria, a man alleged to have made remarks targeted towards Raila Odinga and one bordering on calls to assassinate the court leader, on this day sat next to the very same individual, sharing laughter and chatting heartily. It's a sitting that involved mega political anecdotes that would remind all that despite it all, politicians are friends with varied opinion on governance.
Mimi mmoja mnajua niko frontline ya kupigania Jubilee. Si mnajua namna hiyo. Lakini imefika pahali kufikiria nchi ni kubwa kuliko sisi wenyewe. Kuliko Jubilee na kuliko mtu mwingine yote.
Sisi tutatembelea hizo kaunti 6, kaunti 8 za wafungwa wote wale watu walikuwa wameshikwa kuenda kupeleka amani.
Present during the lunch date that cost the legislators in excess of 10,000 Kenya shillings were the 8 legislators accused of making hate speech remarks, now commonly known as the Pangani 6 and the Muthaiga 2. Their perceived reckless statements had them spend 3 nights behind bars in a situation that may have ended up uniting the political folk even further.
Mimi na mwenzangu Kuria hapa na wale wengine, polisi walitufungia katika seli moja wakifikiri tutapigana, lakini tulitoka tukishikana mikono kama chanda na pete.
Mimi mwenyewe kwa hii siasa nilipiga Mudhama. Naomba msamaha kwa Mudhama na mimi nitapelekea mbuzi kama mzee. Nitapeleka mbuzi kama mzee. Mimi tulipigana na wata, nilipiga wewe. Nitapeleka mbuzi ya wazee. Ili hiyo mambo ifanye nini?
The rare luncheon stirred Kenyans online with varied reactions coming from all quarters.
Sisi tumekula samaki, ugali ya brown, osuga, tumeshiba. Na huku nje nyinyi mnapigana. Sasa sisi nyinyi ndio mmepotea bwana.
We believe very strongly that any Kenyan individual is presumed to be innocent until there is due process. And that if you are arrested by the police, you must be entitled to your other civil rights until you have been tried and convicted by a court of law.
Many are still skeptical as to whether the lunch meeting marks an end to the verbal wars and tension among both the leaders and their supporters. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Well, so it's just a few months to the next general election. That's in 2017. And tonight on KTN Prime, on our big question, you're asking you, do you think that ceasefire between Raila and Kuria will last till the next general election? As Timothy puts it, politicians are friends with varied opinions. And Moses Kuria basically just summarizes everything. He says, sisi ni marafiki lakini nyinyi kule nje mnapigana. So just an analysis really of what exactly happens in this country, especially when politicians feel that hate speech that divides the country, sometimes right down the middle. So do you think the ceasefire between Raila and Kuria will last till the next general election? Our hashtag tonight, when responding to that big question, is Samaki ceasefire. Let us know what you think. Tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. Tweet me directly as well at Lindo Guto. I'll sample your views as we go on with this bulletin. This should be interesting to see. So the Kenyan Opposition Alliance CORD has directed its members who had been summoned by police to record statements and act as state witnesses not to engage with security agencies any further. CORD claims a sinister plot is afoot because, according to them, the suspect charged with falsely implicating CORD members in a plot to overthrow the government is curiously being represented by President Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyer. Duncan Haimba is next with that story.
On Tuesday morning, a section of ODM members accompanied Dagoretti North Member of Parliament Paul Simbarati and Nairobi ODM branch chairman George Aladwa to Nairobi area police headquarters, where they had been summoned to appear and shed light on what was termed as a sensitive matter. This follows claims that the two are among a network recruiting youth to cause civil unrest after 2017 general election.
The two gentlemen are not suspects. They are indeed supposed to be witnesses in a matter that they are investigating against some young man who made certain false allegations.
The claims made by Wycliffe Omocheng on 1st February at Langata Directorate of Criminal Investigations Office alleged that one Omondi Karoli and George Aladwa had recruited him and others to be trained as militias in South Sudan, jointly with Riek Machar forces, in order to assist Raila Odinga take over government after 2017. Claims that have since been established as false information by police and the suspect charged in court on 10th June this year.
Mimi simjui kabisa na sijai kumuona na sijai communicate, ni mambo tu pale ametokea na imani sijui kwa sababu kama namjua tutakutana kotini.
In a conversation we have agreed that they will come to the various offices of the various persons. They want to be their witnesses, including Senator Mudhama, Mr. Ladwa and Mr. Simbarati, and I think there is Mondi Karoli who is also mentioned. They will be visited at different times to record statements as state witnesses against that young man who is spreading rumors in town.
However, shortly after coming from Nairobi area, CORD leadership has changed its mind and directed all its members implicated not to engage the police any further, saying it's a setup by government machinery. The opposition says it has been forced to do so after realizing that the suspect before court, named Omocheng, is being represented by senior counsel Fred Ngatia, who is among President Uhuru Kenyatta's battery of lawyers, thus making the issue more suspicious. CORD has also taken issue with the police why it took them long since February and has only resorted to summon the Nairobi politicians after hitting a dead end. In May, government spokesman Eric Raithe raised the alarm as anti-IBC demos were getting uglier in some parts of the country. About 8 opposition leaders have been implicated in the saga, though only 2 were summoned by police. Duncan Haimba, KTN News.
The Kenyan Teacher Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers have today arrived at a historic collective bargaining agreement that seeks to iron out decades of differences that have bedeviled the sector. The CBA, signed by the two sides, was unveiled on the sidelines of the ongoing Kenya Secondary School Heads Conference in Mombasa. KTN's Francis Ontomwa reports.
The second day of the Kenya Secondary School Heads Conference was going to be special. Head teachers took their position in readiness for a presidential address. The red carpets rolled out. But after several hours of waiting, the president was not to show up. Kesha officials did not have a clear explanation, and neither did the cabinet secretary in charge of education.
Well, since I don't know who is confused, I'm not aware of the confusion. I cannot comment about something I don't know. Because we are not confused. I am the CS for education and I am not confused about it. And if you talk to the chair of the Kenya Secondary Schools Heads Association, he will tell you the program for today, tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. Now you are dragging us into things that are not relevant to us. Talk to Mr. Witty.
Despite that reaction, it was clear that Matiang'i indeed had a busy day, striking several meetings with the head teachers' leaders and the Teacher Service Commission. What will be seen as an attempt to clean up the house before the head of state's arrival.
The Teacher Service Commission under the Constitution is mandated to manage the teaching profession in the country. They provide the guidelines. And where do you need to sell guidelines? Because your employer tells you this is how you need to work, and you comply with your employer. That is all.
On the sidelines, a document hailed as the first ever collective bargaining agreement between TSC and KUNT was being unveiled at the Serena Hotel, a document that seemed to have made everyone happy.
The Teacher Service Commission and the Kenya Union of Teachers have made history by signing the first ever collective bargaining agreement for the teaching service in Kenya since the signing of recognition of agreement between the parties on 15th May 1968.
KNUT have worked very closely to deliver a document that has eluded teachers of this country for the last 59 years of the existence as Kenya National Union of Teachers.
Top highlights in the CBA include setting out the role of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission in the determination of remuneration payable to the teachers.
Moving forward, because we want to commence our negotiations for the next CBA from 1st of July. And therefore, we need SRC to adequately release the job evaluation findings and the necessary advisory opinion to the Teacher Service Commission so that we can effectively engage.
Wednesday marks the third day of the event, with President Uhuru Kenyatta yet again on the day's program. The school fees headache and the terms of service for teachers sticking out as some of the top issues on focus. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
Let's now turn our attention to the Supreme Court and the judiciary. The battle to succeed retired Chief Justice Willie Mutunga and his deputy Kalpana Rawal has begun in earnest. Interestingly, 3 of those eyeing the Chief Justice job are reportedly members of the Judicial Service Commission. The body is supposed to find Kenya's next Chief Justice. KTN's Murimi Mwangi now reports on the intrigues within the Judicial Service Commission likely to influence who succeeds Mutunga and Rawal.
Barely a week after the exit of retired Chief Justice Willie Mutunga, a vicious succession battle has seemingly taken shape between legal minds keen to sit at the judiciary top seat. The political class is also keeping a close eye on the Supreme Court, where the Judicial Service Commission is also recruiting the successor of retired Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal and retired suspended Supreme Court Judge Philip Tunoi.
Say accordingly.
Supreme Court Judge Justice Mukin Wanjala and his Court of Appeal counterpart David Magara have already reportedly filed their applications for the Chief Justice job. Others said to be eyeing the CJ's job are Attorney General Githu Muigai, President of the Court of Appeal Kihara Kariuki, and High Court Judges Isaac Lenaola and Musaga Mbogoli.
JSC, or the Judicial Service Commission, is a balanced commission. If there is some interest that will show itself in the process of recruitment, I believe that the Judicial Service Commission will deal with it.
But with the political class keen to have a properly constituted Supreme Court before 2017, while most sitting judges are reportedly keen to have one from among them promoted to Chief and Deputy Chief Justice, the JSC, it seems, will be having an enormous task, circumventing the individual interests of the commissioners, 3 of who are said to be eyeing the CJ's job.
Those are always there, and you find them in all jurisdictions, that the political face
always bears on the appointment of superior court justices.
The JSC can vote on a matter, and a decision will be arrived at on the basis of a vote by the majority.
The JSC as constituted is a form of a lobby group. Interest is for purposes of serving to produce the best candidate.
After closing the applications at 5 p.m. on the 6th of July, the Judicial Service Commission is expected to publicly vet the shortlisted candidates, then recommend names for a designated Chief Justice and another for the Deputy Chief Justice to the President, who will then submit them to Parliament for approval. JSC says that this will take up to late October or early November this year. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
Jailed for 18 years following a landmark conviction at the International Criminal Court for war crimes and sexual violence. Bemba, a former vice president of DR Congo, was convicted in March of crimes committed in the neighboring Central African Republic in 2002 and 2003. He was accused of failing to stop his rebels from killing and raping people. Bemba's lawyers have already said they will appeal against his conviction.
Take into account all factors mentioned above. The Chamber sentences Mr. Bemba, who was convicted for the following crimes under Article 28A as a person effectively acting as a military commander, to the following terms of imprisonment. Murder as a war crime, 16 years of imprisonment. Murder as a crime against humanity, 16 years imprisonment. Rape as a war crime, 18 years of imprisonment. Rape as a crime against humanity, 18 years of imprisonment. And pillaging as a war crime, 16 years of imprisonment. The Chamber considers that the highest sentence imposed, namely 18 years for rape, reflects the totality of Mr. Bemba's culpability. The Chamber decides that the sentences imposed for the war crimes and crimes against humanity of murder and rape, the war crime of pillaging, shall run concurrently.
Great, let's look at business news now. Depositors in Imperial Bank could be allowed to access an additional 1.5 million shillings after the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation, with the endorsement of the Central Bank of Kenya, today appointed NIC Bank Limited to act as the asset and liability consultant for the bank. The appointment, which may eventually see NIC take over Imperial Bank, will see the consultant undertake due diligence while also ensuring disbursement of an additional 9 billion shillings to depositors. The disbursement commences in July 2016. Well, this is in addition to an initial disbursement of 7 billion made available through Diamond Trust Bank Kenya and KCB earlier in the year. Investors in the office space segment of the real estate market could be staring at tough times ahead due to heavy oversupply in Nairobi that outstrips demand by double digits. While indicators are pointing towards a glut, matters are compounded by the high cost of land that is pushing the cost of this space out of the reach. It has put it out of the reach of many in the market.
Terms asset management report on the real estate market, the supply of office space in Nairobi grew by 17.6% in the year to December 2015, while demand grew over the same period, pegged by a 2.3%, according to Britam. This huge mismatch means that matters could worsen in the sector in 2016, with supply expected to hit unprecedented 3.8 million square feet, representing a year-on growth in supply of about 90%.
The good thing to note is that for those who have developed grade A property, which is 22% of everything that is coming on board, then the returns from that should be slightly higher.
The driver behind this supply trend has been mainly due to speculative development on the back of a positive economic outlook.
Land prices have gone beyond what a lot of investors or developers would want to see.
The asset managers have also expressed concern over the high cost of land in Nairobi, with an acre of land currently going for close to 600 million shillings in Upper Hill. The knock-off effect on this, that many prospective buyers are locked out by high prices.
The global ranking for Nairobi has been fairly good, and one of the things we notice from the ranking is that Nairobi is taking off as a hub location for global corporations.
Between 2011 and 2015, the Kenyan real estate sector grew by 12%, contributing an average of 7.5% to the Kenya's GDP growth over the same period. Philip Keitang, KTN News.
Let's now focus on a story that is close to the heart of very many Kenyans, and tonight you're asking, is there hope for Uchumi Supermarkets? Well, the government is set to inject a 1.2 billion shilling lifeline into Uchumi Supermarkets within the next 2 weeks to assist propel the ailing company's ongoing turnaround strategy. Speaking exclusively to KTN Business, Uchumi Group Chief Executive Officer Dr. Julia Skipngetich intimated that additional alternative funding was waiting in the wings and would be committed once government funds were released.
There's been a lot of speculation, but Uchumi is not going to close shop.
According to Kipngetich, Uchumi is eyeing a 1.2 billion shilling government bailout. This, he says, will inject fresh liquidity into the business and restore consumer confidence.
Government is backing us up, and you'll see the government check come soon. So just watch this space.
The bailout is also expected to unlock additional private equity funds that have been waiting for a catalyst.
We have asked for 1.2 billion. If that comes through, that will be the capital for the expansion. And we are also considering bringing in a strategic investor.
Uchumi's downfall had been attributed to bad
probing bribery allegations against retired Judge Philip Tunoi once again postponed its sittings without deciding whether it would wind up or continue. Michelle Ngele reports.
The legal intrigues surrounding the fate of the tribunal investigating bribery claims against retired Supreme Court Judge Philip Tunoi continues after lawyers representing Tunoi asked for more time to review the landmark ruling by the Supreme Court on the judge's retirement.
In order to have a full appreciation of the impact, we would have to study all the decisions written by each of the judges. So for that reason, Mr. Chairman, we require more time.
The tribunal was expected to conclude its hearings on Tuesday, with one more witness set to appear before the tribunal. Proceedings have, however, been stalled after the Supreme Court sent Philip Tunoi on retirement. Article 168, Clause 5 of the Constitution, pursuant to which the tribunal was constituted, states that the tribunal can only investigate the conduct of a sitting judge.
It will be argued by almost everyone that as he is now no longer a judge, there is no question of removal of the judge who has already been removed because of the retirement of age.
Tunoi has remained categorical that he is dedicated to clearing his name of the bribery allegations, which could very well be steering into a situation where the tribunal's mandate has been overtaken by events, and there is now a debate as to whether the bribery allegations will be forwarded to a different body, such as the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission or the Director of Public Prosecutions.
If the Directorate of Public Prosecution finds it fit for further investigation and probably charging the Honorable Justice in a court of law, then that can also continue.
It is not for us then to recommend whether the EACC or the DPP for that matter or anyone else should carry out any inquiries further or otherwise in relation to the judge.
The special tribunal resumes on Thursday to deliberate on the implications of the Supreme Court retirement verdict on the life of the tribunal. Michelle Ngele, KTN News, Nairobi.
So here's the thing. Have you ever been arrested by city council officials? Of course, a good number of you have been arrested. Some of the charges include littering, alighting at non-designated areas, hawking, and the latest one has been stepping on quote-unquote Kidero grass. This next story really is for you. So counties could soon lose a key source of revenue after members of parliament supported a proposal seeking the abolition of county courts set in various parts of the country, while legislators rose to support claims that county governments have been using the courts to extort money, harass innocent residents, and raise illegal revenue for the counties. The proposal seeks to have the Office of the Auditor General investigate the operations of the court and recommend action, including recovery of money from those who may have benefited from them. According to the petition, the repeal of Local Government Act rendered the county courts obsolete, and all law violations must be handled in the Magistrates' Court. The petition was forwarded to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for consideration before tabling a report within 60 days. Let's look at some of the arguments that were put across by legislators, of course, supporting this, which essentially means very soon you will not get arrested by Kanjo officials, quote unquote, we like calling them that. So legislators are saying the county courts are not mentioned in law, and as a matter of fact, they should not be in existence. They also say that the courts used to unlawfully detain, harass, and extort money, and this has actually been pointed and alluded to by very many people who have been arrested by Kanjo officials. They say they arrest you, and then charges are read out, and then you end up paying very hefty fines. So the legislators also say people who operate the courts are not well trained in law, and as such they have no idea how to even carry out the operations of the court. And then there are those legislators who also say these courts are now a cash cow for well-connected individuals, of course looking at the fines that those who are accused of several things end up paying. And then finally they say they have pointed to the fact that these courts are like kangaroo institutions that have no legal backing. So clearly, very soon, if this goes their way, then you will not be arrested by city council officials. Let's see how that goes. Of course, we're keeping an eye on that because it touches on so many Kenyans. Now let's focus on security or lack of it thereof. One person was killed today, bringing to 2 the number of those killed in the clashes between the Luo and Nandi living at the Kisumu-Nandi border. The clashes that erupted yesterday has also left at least 5 people with arrows lodged in their bodies. Rashid Ronald reports.
Jacob Ochieng from Achego village at the border between Kisumu and Nandi, receiving treatment at the Chemele dispensary. He had an arrow lodged in his leg thanks to the clashes between the Luo and the Nandis over cattle rustling. In another ward, we meet Fanuel Ochuka from Rapogi village with an arrow lodged in his chest. Doctors managed to remove it though. Another bed is hosting Wycliffe Mori from Kopera village. An arrow from a neighbor turned enemy pierced through his thigh.
Naitwa Fanuel Ochuka, Ouma, natoka Rapogi. Hii vita kati yetu sisi Wajaluo na majirani yetu ilianzia kwa ng'ombe.
This morning we received one victim from the border of Kisumu and Nandi border, with the history of having been injured by an arrow on the left lower limb. This evening we have received 3 more other victims. One had arrow lodged on his chest, and the other 2 had arrow wounds on the lower limbs.
Residents said trouble ensued on Monday when alleged bandits from the Nandi community attacked a herder from the Luo community at the Songor Hills and made away with 76 herds of cattle. The injured herder is said to have raised an alarm, and his kinsmen from the Luo community responded swiftly. This resulted to the killing of Elijah Kipruto, who they claim is a known cattle rustler, and the recovery of 72 cattle. Come Tuesday, members of the Nandi community hit back in retaliation. They shot several people with arrows and torched houses. They were, however, not lucky, as one of their own was also killed.
There's an element. We cannot say animals were stolen, because all the animals which these people wanted to take were recovered. Animals for Buto were recovered. But 4 which they took in the process of causing skirmishes when they came around burning items in the homesteads. This is where they met away with 4 herds of cattle and were trailing them.
Nandi County Commissioner Lois Mulili confirmed the killing, but said security has been beefed in the area. Several families at the border between Nandi and Kisumu have been displaced. Rashid Ronald, KTN News at the border between Kisumu and Nandi counties.
9 ODM lawmakers from Western Kenya, led by the party's national vice chairperson Paul Otuoma and Secretary General Ababuna Mwamba, have accused the party's top leadership of sidelining elected leaders from the Western Kenya. Otuoma claims that ODM Secretary General Ababuna Mwamba is being sabotaged and frustrated by forces within the party in his efforts to reform and popularize the party. Mwamba dismissed reports in social media that he was planning to ditch ODM.
We want to state that we are not happy with the habit where the party and the party leadership has now formed the habit of visiting the areas we represent without even having the courtesy to inform us and even share with us so that we can participate, because we are members of the party, of ODM, and sometimes you just hear activities in your area when you are not aware. The party leader has been visiting the region. We are not sometimes even informed most of the time. He has been in certain places, in Vihiga, in Kakamega, and even the local leadership here is not aware as the ones who are here. And even now, some people have taken cue from that, especially our party chairman. He had started causing a lot of problems in Siaya and Homa Bay. He's now carrying the same habit to Western Province. The other day, he was in Honorable Andola's area in Huisero, purporting to install some party leadership. And the Honorable Andola is elected member of parliament on ODM ticket in that area. And there was no courtesy of even informing him, as an example. Then we also want to rebuke this idea that when a member has a view, you start calling them moles. Or when members engage other Kenyans, you call them moles. We must clearly be able to define when we are saying something as people's representative, rightfully, which is our right as Kenyans. Because parliament here is a commonwealth of Kenyans. So you cannot tell me that I'm a robot to be manipulated from somewhere. I can have an opinion which is different from yours. And the more you tolerate that opinion, the better we build the party structure. So these issues of just the whipping, even without giving members opportunity or calling members moles, just because they have engaged certain people, is wrong.
I call them internet idlers. So I will certainly not have any time for responding to internet idlers and cyber loafers who have absolutely no idea or no knowledge of what they are talking about. We can only talk about serious issues, and I believe our national vice chairman, Honorable Dr. Otuoma, has sufficiently raised the issues that are substantive and that require to be addressed.
The government is set to inject a 1.2 billion shilling lifeline into Uchumi Supermarkets within the next 2 weeks to assist propel the ailing company's ongoing turnaround strategy. Speaking exclusively to KTN Business, Uchumi Group CEO, Chief Executive Officer Dr. Julius Kipngetich intimated that additional alternative funding was waiting in the wings and would be committed once government funds were released.
There's been a lot of speculation, but Uchumi is not going to close shop.
According to Kipngetich, Uchumi is eyeing a 1.2 billion shilling government bailout. This, he says, will inject fresh liquidity into the business and restore consumer confidence.
Government is backing us up, and you'll see the government check come soon. So just watch this space.
The bailout is also expected to unlock additional private equity funds that have been waiting for a catalyst.
We have asked for 1.2 billion. If that comes through, that will be the capital for the expansion. And we are also considering bringing in a strategic investor.
Uchumi's downfall had been attributed to bad governance and lack of proper controls, something Kipngetich says they have now fixed.
I want to apologize to our customers. Uchumi has not treated you well, okay? But that is coming to an end. In the next few days, you'll see a major difference in our stores. We want to bring our suppliers back to the store. A lot of them are cooperating.
The one-time darling of the Kenyan shopper is struggling to stay afloat with near empty shelves dotting its now 20 operational branches. The CEO, dubbed the turnaround management artist, says this is about to change.
We believe that the Uchumi that's remaining is strong. What I can tell Kenyans is this is not a big challenge. We can surmount it, and we'll surmount it shortly. What we are looking for is your support, okay, and encouragement.
Uchumi intends to innovate in order to once again cover niche in the market. Key to its turnaround strategy is to open up over 200 franchise stores over the next 3 years to serve the small retail layer of the market.
The future of Uchumi and the future of retail in Kenya is to go for smaller stores. Bigger stores, the market for bigger stores is limited. The future is to go for convenience stores where the public live, both rural and urban settings.
With stiffening competition in the retail space, Uchumi's bet remains a major gamble, a gamble which just may pay off. Abi Agina, KTN Business.
That's it for tonight. Thank you for watching KTN Prime. Let's leave it as that. Have a good night. I'm Linda Gutu. The last word begins now with Sophia Wanuna.